Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So text 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yatra Havava Veera Vrat Auttanapadi Parama Bhagavato Smata Kula Devata.
Yatra Bhava Veera Vrata Auttanapadi Parama Bhagavato Asmat Kula Devata.
Charanar Vindodakam iti yam anusavanam utkrishyamana.
Charanara Vindodakam iti yam anusavanam utkrishyamana.
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogena Dridham Klidyamanantara Hridaya Otkantya.
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogena Dridham Klidyamanantar Hridaya.
Vivasha Milat Lochana Yugala Kudamal Vigalatamal Bashpa.
Vivasha Milita Lochana Yugala Kudamala Vigalita Mala Bashpa.
Kalaya Bhivajyaman Roma Pulaka Kulako Dhunapi Paramadarena Shirasa Vibharti.
Kalaya Bhivajyamana Roma Pulaka Kulako Adhunapi Paramadarena Shirasa Vibharti.
Yes. Someone like to read?
I can read.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapad, is known as the most exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord because of his firm determination in executing devotional service. Knowing that the sacred Ganges water washes the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, situated on his own planet, to this very day, accepts water on his head with great devotion. Because he constantly thinks of Krishna very devoutly within the core of his heart, he is overcome with ecstatic anxiety. Tears flow from his half-open eyes and eruptions appear on his entire body. Purport: when a person is firmly fixed in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is described as Veera Vrata, fully determined. Such a devotee increases his ecstasy in devotional service more and more. Thus, as soon as he remembers Lord Vishnu, his eyes fill with tears. This is a symptom of a Mahabhagavat. Dhruva Maharaj maintained himself in that devotional ecstasy, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave us a practical example of transcendental ecstasy when he lived at Jagannath Puri. His pastimes there are fully narrated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
See, a Mahabhagavat, the symptoms of a Mahabhagavat is that he is always remembering the Lord. There is a difference between sadhaka and siddha. A sadhak is still practicing, and a siddha, on the other hand, is situated in spontaneous devotion. A sadhak should not artificially consider himself advanced. Actually, as soon as a person thinks he's advanced in bhakti, he's already fallen. That is what Srila Prabhupada explains, that the more one advances in bhakti, the more one considers himself fallen. The more one considers oneself to be unqualified for the love of Godhead, the more he receives the love of Godhead. To Dhruva Maharaj, actually, he performed hard austerities, and then he received the audience of the Lord. And in such a situation, actually, Dhruva Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj was lamenting. When the Lord appeared, he lamented that I asked Lord for something which was so totally insignificant. The Lord had appeared to please Dhruva Maharaj's desire, to fulfill Dhruva Maharaj's desire And Dhruv Maharaj considered himself so fallen that he had desired something material. And even though he did not ask for anything, the Lord gave him the kingship of this whole planet for 32,000 years. We can see that the Lord is within the heart of every living entity. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto. And even though one does not desire, the Lord still fulfills one's heart's desires, even if one does not express oneself. So Dhruv Maharaj was promised that he would stay in his Dhruv planet, and when the destruction takes place, universal destruction takes place, he'll go back to Godhead. So actually his own planet itself is a part of the spiritual world. So his planet is not a material planet, that's a spiritual planet within this universe. So this water actually is coming from Virja. So this Virja river is actually the watery boundary between the spiritual and the material worlds. It is the covering of the universe. Because it was touched by the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the water is as good as the touch of Lord's lotus feet itself. So one should understand that taking bath in Ganges actually purifies one. But this purification will last only as long as one's desires are to serve the Lord. If one approaches Mother Ganga with a desire to serve the Supreme Lord, she will purify one completely. On the other hand, if one just goes there to take bath in the Ganges with the express objective of getting rid of sins so that he can enjoy this material world, then the water of Ganges is not going to purify. Because once it is the consciousness that has to be purified, not just some sinful reactions. Okay, so yeah, shall we continue? So also one more thing, there's one more point. We are talking about tears of ecstasy. So these tears of ecstasy are actually tears of separation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself expresses that. I mean, since his name is mentioned here, so Mahaprabhu himself expresses that emotion. Yugaitam nimishena chakshusha pravrashaitam shunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda virahenam. Actually, a pure devotee of the Lord feels complete loneliness in this material world. He does not relish anything, neither any material facilities nor any familial relationships. He feels completely lonely in this material world because he feels the absence of the Supreme Lord. At all moments, he feels that he has been abandoned by the Lord. Shunya yugaitam nimishena. Each moment seems like 20 years or more. And chakshusha pravrashaitam. Tears are constantly falling from the eyes. One considers oneself the most fallen. Shunyaitam jagat sarvam. The whole world seems shunya, empty, zero. Shunyaitam jagat sarvam. Govinda virahena. Separation from Krishna. That's the whole Parakiras actually, Parakiras is all about separation, mood of separation of gopis. And actually this Gaudiya Sampradaya in which we are is all about the mood of separation. Srila Prabhupada also writes in his commentaries that the gopis of Vrindavan are not saying that we have seen Krishna. I mean, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are not saying we have seen Krishna. They are always asking, oh Krishna, oh Krishna, oh Radha, oh Lalita, oh Vishakha, where are you? Hey Radhe Vrajadevike, hey Nanda Shuno, hey Radhe Vrajadevike, Lalite cha Vishakhe, hey Nanda Shuno Kuto. So this is the mood actually, this is the Gaudiya mood. The more one advances in Gaudiya mood, the more separation one will feel. This was the mood of all our acharyas. Srila Narottam Das Thakur actually personifies this mood of separation. All his bhajans are only expressing this mood of separation, intense mood of separation. And not just any separation, he's also feeling intense separation from all other senior Vaishnavas. So that is the mood of bhakti, mood of separation. So that is the proper mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here? We continue text 3. Tatah sapta rishayas tata prabhava bhigya yam nanu tapasa atyantiki.
Tatah sapta rishayas tata prabhava yam nanu tapasa atyantiki.
सिद्धिर एतावती भगवती सर्वात्मनि वासुदेवे अनुपरत भक्ति योग।
सिद्धिर एतावती भगवती
भगवती
सर्वात्मनि
सर्वात्मनि
वासुदेवे
वासुदेव
अनुपरत भक्ति योग।
भक्ति योग अनुपरत भक्ति योग।
लाभे नैवोपेक्षितां यार्थात्म गतयो मुक्तिम इवागतां मुमुक्षव इव।
लाभेन
लाभेन
एव
उपेक्षितान् याथात्मा गतौ मुक्तिम् इवागतं मुमुक्षव इव।
सुबहु मानम अद्यापि जटा जुटैर उद्वहन्ति।
सबहुमानम् अद्यापि जटा उद्वहन्ति।
जुटैर उद्वहन्ति।
Yes, please.
Translation, purport by His Divine Grace Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The seven great sages, Marichi, Vashishta, Atri, and so on, reside on planets beside Dhruvaloka. Well aware of the influence of the water of the Ganges, to this day they keep the Ganges water on the tufts of hair on their heads. They have concluded that this is the ultimate wealth, the perfection of all austerities, and the best means of prosecuting transcendental life. Having obtained uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they neglect all other beneficial processes like religion, economic development, sense gratification, and even merging into the Supreme. Just as Jnanis think that merging into the existence of Lord is the highest truth, these seven exalted personalities accept devotional service as the perfection of life. Purport. Transcendentalists are divided into two primary groups: the Nirbhisesha Vadis or impersonalists, the Bhaktas or devotees. The impersonalists do not accept spiritual varieties of life. They want to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord in his Brahman feature, the Brahma Jyoti. The devotees, however, desire to take part in the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. In the upper planetary system, the topmost planet is Dhruvaloka, and beneath Dhruvaloka are the seven planets occupied by the great sages, beginning with Marichi, Vashishta, and Atri. All these sages regard devotional service as the highest perfection of life. Therefore, they all carry the holy water of the Ganges on their heads. This verse proves that for one who has achieved the platform of pure devotional service, nothing else is important, even so-called liberation, Kaivalya. Srila Sridhara Swami states that only by achieving pure devotional service of the Lord can one give up all other engagements as insignificant. Prabhupada Saraswati confirms this statement as follows: Kaivalyam narakayate Sridhasa pur akasha pushpayate durtantendriya khala sarpa patali protkata damstrayate visvam purna sukhayate vidhi mahendradis cha hitayate yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam gauram eva stumaha. Chaitanya Charitamrita 5. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has perfectly enunciated and broadcast the process of Bhakti Yoga. Consequently, for one who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest perfection of the Mayavadis, Kaivalya, or becoming one with the Supreme, is considered hellish, to say nothing of the Karmi's aspiration to be promoted to the heavenly planets. Devotees consider such goals to be worthless phantasmagoria. There are also yogis who try to control their senses, but they can never succeed without coming to the stage of devotional service. The senses are compared to the poisonous snake, but the senses of a bhakta engaged in the service of the Lord are like snakes with their poisonous fangs removed. The yogi tries to suppress his senses, but even great mystics like Vishwamitra fail in the attempt to. Vishwamitra was conquered by his senses when he was captivated by Menaka during his meditation. She later gave birth to Shakuntala. The wisest person in the world, therefore, are Bhakti yogis, as Lord Krishna confirms in the Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yoman same yuktatmo Ataha, of all yogis, he who always abides in me, with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
We have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita also. Third chapter, Krishna is explaining the process of Karma Yoga. So Krishna is explaining that the living entity who is entangled in this material world can gradually become freed from the entanglement of Maya by the process of sacrifice, yajna. By material sacrifice, one comes to the platform of Gyan or knowledge, which is to understand what is the true objective of all actions. Who is the real objective of all the actions? Who's the primary objective of life? So this is known as Jnana. After acting on the platform of Gyan, one reaches the platform of renunciation. That is, one becomes completely freed from the propensity to act in the material domain. And by practicing detachment, one comes to the platform of bhakti. This is the process of yoga actually. So for those who are in the material world, those who are too much entangled to material senses, the Vedas prescribe the activities of dharma, artha, kama and moksha. But this is not considered the highest by the saintly souls. Because dharma, artha, kama, moksha is completely on the material platform. Even the so-called liberation which the Gyanis are aspiring for is nothing more than sense gratification. Like Srila Prabhupada explains that when a living entity becomes too embarrassed because of sense gratification, when one feels repeated embarrassment of birth and death, then the living entity gets frustrated and wants to merge into the existence of the Supreme. This is also on the platform of ignorance because one doesn't know what is the real objective of life. Because one cannot merge into the Supreme. If we see Bhagavad Gita, verse number 20, second chapter, Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So here, Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the translation, and this explanation is also given by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, that for the soul there is never birth or death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. So the living entity has emerged from the Lord, as Chandogya Upanishad explains, that in the beginning was the one Supreme, and then he divided himself into innumerable parts for his own enjoyment. So at some point, soul got separated from the Supreme. But having come into being, Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vana Bhuya. So having once been, he doesn't cease to exist. The soul cannot merge back into the Lord. At best, he will merge into the Brahman and stay there for some time until such time as he falls down again. Because there is no question of attachment to the Supreme, this sort of liberation is also considered hellish by the really knowledgeable persons, by the great devotional personalities. So these sages like Marichi, Vasishtha, Atri and others that we are talking about, the Sapta Rishis, they are worshipping the Supreme Lord by taking Ganges water on their heads. This is actual liberation. That is attaining the love of God. Actually, by simply becoming purified of material propensities, one does not achieve liberation. Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter explains, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. Rasvarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But seizing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So, Vishaya vinivartante. So one may refrain from senses. But niraharasya dehina, one may actually deprive oneself of sense gratification. This is exactly the condition in Brahman. But the living entity in Brahman is just experiencing a negative aspect of material nature. It is simply refraining from enjoyment. But because he's anandamayo bhyasat, he's anandamay, he's seeking happiness, he cannot stay for long in Brahman. In Brahman, one experiences freedom from miseries. But one cannot stay there forever. As soon as there is desire to acquire ananda, one has to fall down into material domain again because one does not know his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So therefore, the so-called Kaivalya or liberation of the Jnani is actually only on the material platform. That is also born of selfish desire of ahankar to become free from miseries. So therefore, such Kaivalya or liberation is actually considered material only. It is not spiritual. The highest perfection is actually to serve the Supreme Lord. Gopi bharto pad kamalayor das rasanudas. To serve the to serve the servant of the masters of gopis. So senses, if they are properly engaged in bhakti, they will not become deviated. So when Srila Prabhupada was in America, one taxi driver asked him, "So Swamiji, what is your magic?" So Prabhupada said, "Yeah, I can be in a room full of naked women and I'll not be agitated." So that is actually a very deep statement, that one does not become agitated in the presence of sense objects. This is only possible when one's senses are engaged in the highest taste. Rasavarjam rasopyasya. By engaging in higher taste. Raso api asya. Param drishtva nivartate. So by taking param drishtva, by experiencing the higher taste, by giving up lower taste and by taking higher taste. Like Prabhupada explains, if I am giving you a juicy rasgulla, why would you want to eat a dry chapati? So when one has experienced the bliss of pure devotional service, one will not want to enjoy the inferior material sense gratification, which is full of miseries and it is obnoxious. So Vishwamitra fell down to Menaka's charms because he was trying to meditate on the impersonal aspect of the Supreme. On the other hand, Srila Haridas Thakur, even though Maya Devi personified came to tempt him, he was not tempted because he was experiencing the higher taste of service of Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I have a question. This
Yeah.
might sound very silly, but Prabhuji, we always talk about the Mayavadis want to merge into existence of Supreme. So theoretically, to samajh mein aata hai ki they wanted to merge into the existence of Supreme. They wanted to get into Brahman. They are getting freed from materialistic world. Okay. Practically, iska kya matlab hai? Like if we talk about they wanted to merge into Supreme, Bhagavad Gita also says that, everywhere is Krishna. Brahman is everywhere, and we are actually existing in his body. So what do they mean by merging into Supreme?
What do they mean by merging into Supreme?
Mm-hmm.
Merging into the Supreme, they mean, becoming Brahman. Brahman Satya, Jagat Mithya. That means this whole material world is just an illusion. You have to merge into the Supreme. So that is also possible, actually. It's not like an impossibility. It's not something which is not at all real. It is real. But the problem is, it is temporary. It is not permanent. For example,
soul kahan chale jati? Matlab wo soul jati kahan hai fir? If they are saying they merge into Brahman, where does that soul go? Because Brahman is everywhere.
So Jagan Mithya. So what they say is that this body is like a dream. For example, where do you dream? You dream on your bed. When you wake up, you're still on your bed. You are lying on your couch or lying on your bed and you're dreaming. In your dreams, you are traveling so many places, you are meeting people, you are seeing things. As soon as you wake up, you realize that you are still in the same place. So what they say is that you are actually in a state of dream. Jagan Mithya. This material world is just a dream. You are dreaming here. So by practice of strict tapasya, actually Mayavadis are very strict as compared to Vaishnavas. So by strict observation of brahmacharya and by meditation on Brahman and complete purification of one's senses, one will perceive that he is Brahman. Actually, the path of purification is the same. It's not very different. If a Vaishnava also practices the same austerities, Vaishnava will also achieve the same results. So
Vaishnava will also get the same results. As I guess, Vaishnava is aspiring for the service, nahi?
So Vaishnava will also be purified of all materialistic misconceptions. And then his devotional service will start. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Mad Bhaktim Lavate Param. One attains bhakti after attaining Brahma Bhuta. So Brahma Bhut, that is the position. One has to attain liberation after attaining Brahman. So without being Brahma Bhut, one is not executing devotional service. We are practicing. We are trying. Our consciousness is not pure. We are still attracted to Maya.
Mhm.
Car, house, husband, wife, all this. This is Maya. This is illusion.
Mhm.
In a platform of knowledge, one understands that this is not reality. One should not be endeavoring for these things.
Mhm.
Adi Shankara took sannyas at the age of 7 or something. So that's the position. One has to understand this world is an illusion. So why hang around in illusion?
मतलब कि they are still in here, but they think they are merged into Brahman.
Well, they do merge into Brahman in the sense that their consciousness reaches up to the platform of Brahman, but they cannot go beyond it. They may think that they have merged with the Lord, but that doesn't happen. They merge into Brahman for some time and they have to take birth again.
Mhm.
So a
Because-
devotee doesn't aspire to merge into Brahman.
Hmm.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, he also warns that a devotee should not entertain such thoughts because the merging into Brahman is also very attractive for a sadhak. In this life, we are suffering from so many miseries. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Adhyatmik, Adi, Bhautik, Adi, Daivik, Klesha. All these we are suffering from.
Mhm.
As soon as one gets a glimpse of Brahman, one is freed from all these miseries
Mhm.
instantly. So for a sadhak who's not very much fixed in devotional service, this is very attractive.
True.
Actually, even we don't know. Like somehow or the other, if we attain Brahman right now by some mercy of Krishna, by some very extraordinary mercy, if we attain Brahman now, we don't know whether we would want to continue devotional service or will we just become fixed in Brahman.
Mhm.
Because right now our bhakti is born out of the miseries we are experiencing in this material world.
Mhm.
So as soon as these miseries are taken away, will we still have the motivation to continue bhakti? That will be the real test. And that's why Srila Prabhupada writes in Srimad Bhagavatam purport that the ultimate test of Maya is to convince a devotee that he is Krishna. So that test is yet to come.
This part, it's hard to understand. How does Maya convinces a devotee that he's the controller?
See, as you attain liberation, as you head towards liberation, you will see that you start attaining mystical powers.
Mm. Mhm.
Durvasa Muni, when he was being chased by Sudarshan Chakra, he could reach up to Vaikuntha.
Mhm.
He's a mystic. Durvasa Muni, he's a partial incarnation of Shiva, but he's still a mystic.
Mhm.
So if an ordinary mystic can do something like this, so this seems so fantastic actually,
Mhm.
Freedom, don't underestimate the power of freedom from miseries. We are literally seeking that. Real test will come when we are free from material miseries. That will be the real test of our bhakti.
Mhm.
Even in this life, we see so many devotees, they are happy in the material life, so they are not so motivated to continue in bhakti.
Mhm.
And we are talking about some very cheap happiness, just some materialistic husband, materialistic wife, some money, and that's it. They are happy with that. Hari bol.
Mhm.
What to speak of liberation? If such devotees are given liberation, they will never worship Krishna.
Mhm.
So you see, our worship is born out of fear of Maya. When this Maya's fear recedes, at that time, real test of bhakti comes. Actually, when you advance further in bhakti, you'll realize that we are not to reference Maya for our bhakti. Right now, we say, "Oh Krishna, protect me," because we are afraid of Maya. We have suffered under the hands of Maya.
Mhm.
Once that suffering is gone, will we still have the motivation to render bhakti? That should be the real test. That's the question we should ask ourselves.
Mhm.
Once happiness comes, once all the miseries are gone, do I still have the desire to serve Krishna?
Mhm.
Krishna can do that. Krishna is most merciful. If he sees that our real desire is just to become free from miseries, and we have rendered devotional service, Krishna will give it. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyam. So we have to question our motivation. Do we want to serve Krishna, or do we just want freedom from material desires?
Mhm.
Krishna
That's
will
like
give
a
everything.
chaped.
Yes.
That's like a chaped.
Yeah, so these are dangers of bhakti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also warns about these things.
Mhm. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Ji.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hmm. Text 4. Tato aneka sahasra koti vimananik shankula deva yane navatar.
Anika Sahasra Koti Mananika Sankula Deva Ranena Avatar
Antindu mandalam avarya brahma sadane nipatati.
Hindu Mandalam Avarya Brahma Sadane Nipatati.
Hare Krishna. Yes, please. Someone like to read?
May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna. Shila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. Translation. After purifying the 7 planets near Dhruvaloka, the pole star, the Ganga's water is carried through the spaceways of the demigods in billions of celestial airplanes. Then it inundates the moon, Chandraloka, and finally reaches Lord Brahma's abode atop Mount Meru. Purport. We should always remember that Ganga river comes from the causal ocean beyond the covering of the universe. After the water of causal ocean leaks through the hole created by Lord Vamandev, it flows down to Dhruvaloka, the pole star, and then to the 7 planets beneath Dhruvaloka. Then it is carried to the moon by innumerable celestial airplanes. And then it falls at the top of Mount Meru, which is known as Sumera Parvata. In this way, the water of Ganges finally reaches the lower planets and the peaks of the Himalayas, and from there it flows through Haridwar and throughout the plains of India, purifying the entire land. How the Ganga water reaches the various planets from the top of the universe is explained herein. Celestial airplanes carry the water from the planets of the sages to other planets. So-called advanced scientists of the modern age are trying to go to the higher planet, but at the same time they are experiencing a power shortage on Earth. If they were actually capable scientists, they could personally go by airplane to other planet, but this they are unable to do. Having now given up their moon excursions, they are attempting to go to other planets, but without success. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Hare Krishna. The Ganges water is carried through the spaceways of the demigods in billions of celestial airplanes. Then it inundates the moon and finally reaches Lord Brahma's abode atop Mount Meru. So this is how actually, these things we should not try to imagine because these are beyond our imagination. Like when we think of Ganga being carried in airplane, we can imagine something like, some jumbo jets or some Boeings or Airbuses carrying water in huge tankers. It's not like that. So, or Mount Meru, for instance, like, Mount Meru, and then from Mount Meru, it comes to Himalayas. So where is Mount Meru? We can't see it. So we should also understand that we are talking about dimensions which are beyond our capacity of understanding. So the scientists, they try to see everything through their eyes and then they conclude that, it's all impossible to see or that it doesn't exist. But that's not the case. For example, a bacteria or a virus cannot understand that we are existing, even though it has a very living existence. It has a very real existence. So just like that, we are also microscopic when it comes to comparisons with demigods or these giant celestial structures. So we cannot imagine how this is happening, but we should just accept what the conclusion that Srimad Bhagavatam is giving. That this water comes from the very boundary of spiritual world, and then it enters into the various planetary systems. It reaches the heads of the great sages and Lord Shiva, and then from the abode of Lord Brahma, Lord Moon, it comes to the material world. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here?
Also, Prabhuji, one more question from the same verse, text 4. In the translation, Prabhupada is saying, I missed that point. In the translation, Prabhupada is saying, having obtained uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they neglect all other beneficial processes like religion, and merging into. Why Prabhupada is calling this as a beneficial process, including economic development, sense gratification, सारे.
Oh, in the previous verse you're talking about,
हाँ जी, fourth में, हाँ जी,
fourth में,
translation में. Oh, नहीं, third में,
after
sorry.
third के translation में ना, हाँ.
जी.
See, or they neglect all the beneficial processes like dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. See, those are beneficial processes. I mean, a living entity has to work. He has to do something even to survive. Like he has to breathe at least. So this dharma gives you artha. So you can have facilities for good life. So these are beneficial, but they are materially beneficial. These are benefactory processes. Annat bhavanti bhutani. Krishna is explaining in 3rd chapter that grain comes from rain and rain comes from yajna. So these are beneficial processes. This process of yajna is coming from the Supreme Lord himself. So that one may live a life of peace. I mean, if you're living like a beggar, you're struggling here and there, then where is the question of peace? In a lower stage of consciousness, in which most people are actually, one needs some material facilities for existence. So some material benefits are actually good for cultivating one's spiritual life. For example, you wanted a separate house so that you don't have to struggle. Now that house itself is just a material facility, but if you are able to serve Lord peacefully because of a new house, that's beneficial. Having a house is beneficial, having food is beneficial, having clothing is beneficial. So it is beneficial, but eventually what is the outcome? That is the real benefit.
Because we are not at the stage, we require these to have peace of mind so we can render service.
Yes.
Eventually, these will be mere attachments.
Absolutely. Otherwise, these are just mere attachments.
Okay, ji. Thank you so much, Babuji. Hare Krishna ji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so we stop here today then. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna ji.
Hare
Krishna, Danat Pranam. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Krishna, Pranam. Thank you.
Prabhuji, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, please.
एक उसमें आ रहा है चैप्टर में, शायद मैंने बंद कर चैतन्य चैतामृता की मध्य लीला में आता है, जब सर्वभौम भट्टाचार्य उनको कह रहे हैं चैतन्य महाप्रभु कि आपने अगर मंदिर जाना है ना, जगन्नाथ जी वाले मंदिर, तो यू आइदर गो विद मी और यू गो विद वन ऑफ माय पीपल, अकेले मत जाना। तो चैतन्य महाप्रभु उनको कहते हैं मैंने अंदर नहीं जाना, मैंने तो वो बाहर वो जो स्तंभ है वहां से ही दर्शन करने। व्हाई ही इज सेइंग दैट I don't want to go inside the temple, like I'm not going inside the temple. मैंने वो वाले स्तंभ से ही दर्शन करना।
अच्छा, गरुड़ स्तंभ से?
हाँ जी, गरुड़ स्तंभ से। हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
This is Chaitanya Madhya Leela, right?
Madhya Leela.
What is Prabhupada explaining there? Because this explanation comes in various ways actually. Antya Leela में भी इसका explanation आता है।
मैं वही actually में इसमें वो परपट है ही नहीं, इसमें सिर्फ ट्रांसलेशन है that says Lord said I shall never enter the temple but should always view the Lord from the side of Gadur स्तंभ। उसके बाद नेक्स्ट श्लोक आ जाता।
Okay, so इसके दो तीन explanation आते हैं। One is कि महाप्रभु considers himself ineligible. मतलब पहली बात तो महाप्रभु feels that he is not eligible to see Krishna. एक और explanation ये भी आता है कि because there are so many devotees there, so Mahaprabhu doesn't want to go there. Like for example, एक बार एक आदिवासी औरत उनके कंधे पे चढ़ जाती है, एक लोकल औरत, महाप्रभु भगवान का दर्शन करने, तो सत्स्वरूप दास गोस्वामी उनको रोकते हैं कि मत चढ़ो वहां पे। तो महाप्रभु chastises him कि वो आदिवासी, can't you see how much ecstasy she has in seeing the Lord? I don't even have that much taste. So that is like, these are two explanations. But Mahaprabhu, see, he's in the mood of Radharani. So he's also feeling shy when he sees Jagannath.
Yes.
इसके बहुत explanations हैं actually, एक दो नहीं है इसके
हम्म।
अंदर।
मतलब ये डिवोटी वाला मुझे थोड़ा ज्यादा समझ में नहीं आता, क्यों? क्योंकि इनके सारे जो पार्षद जो सारे उनके साथ हैं कंपनी डिवोटी, वो तो सारे जा रहे हैं अंदर।
हाँ, महाप्रभु अपने आप को उतना क्वालिफाइड नहीं समझते।
हम्म हम्म ट्रू। ठीक है जी, we'll take it that- we'll take it that way. अगर इसी को बेस बना के आगे पढूं तो विल कंटिन्यू दिस वे, एंड अगर कोई क्वेश्चन आएगा आई आस्क यू।
हाँ, नो प्रॉब्लम।
ठीक है जी, ठीक है जी, थैंक यू प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्ण जी, धन्यवाद प्रणाम जी।
राम हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna, Danda Pranam. Thank you, Prabhu.
हरे कृष्णा, थैंक यू, दंड प्रणाम प्रभु।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु, दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्णा, दंड प्रणाम।